The Steam Deck has had multiple updates through its lifetime, some of which are literally game changers, like 40Hz mode. But SteamOS 3.5 promises to be the biggest Steam Deck update ever. What makes this update so special? What does it come with? Well, I'll tell you what it comes with. But first, a message from our sponsor, TomToc, who creates a lot of excellent Steam Deck bags. When I have to bring my Steam Deck outside of my house, I always bring it in a TomToc case. They make a wide variety of cases. In fact, I'm hosting a giveaway on Twitter. More information can be found in the description down below. Now let's talk about SteamOS 3.5. The first of which is a brand new slider that lets you change the saturation of the Steam Deck screen. One of the most popular Decky plugins to download is one called Vibrant Deck, which changes the saturation of your Steam Deck screen. Changing your saturation is not the same thing as just having a better panel to begin with, but some people do prefer higher saturation when calibrating their screens. So this new feature should all but eliminate the need to download Vibrant Deck as a whole. Another major feature is a feature called NVIDIA Image Scaling. This is more similar to AMD's FSR 1.0, which is built into the Steam Deck. It's essentially a GPU-based upscaler. Also included are some options to stretch and fill the display. You know how most games are in 16:9 and you see black bars on the top and bottom of the Steam Deck screen? Now Valve includes two solutions to this problem, though they aren't perfect solutions. Here's a pretty good example of what stretch does. It fills out the screen. Now here's a good example of what fill does. It fills out the screen without distorting the image, but some important information can be cut off, like life bars and such. It's a feature that I'm sure some people will appreciate, but to be honest, I would rather have black bars than have a game stretched out. Another new features are toggles for VRR and HDR. Now obviously the Steam Deck's main display doesn't support variable refresh rate or high dynamic range, but if you were to dock it to an external display that supports both, you can toggle them both on and off very easily. These are some of the new features coming to SteamOS 3.5. But honestly, the biggest changes aren't new features. Instead, these are driver updates, a whole Linux kernel update as well. So let's go over these under the hood changes, shall we? One of the biggest updates is an update to the graphics driver. Believe it or not, the Steam Deck has never had a graphics driver update, and this will be the first update to feature such an update. What does it entail though? Well, obviously, like with most graphics driver updates, better performance. Your games should perform better than they have before, though probably not by much. But one of the biggest enhancements is shader caches. Shader caches are the bane of any 64GB Steam Deck's existence. They do take up quite a bit of space. And as per the driver update for Mesa, this should, in theory, reduce the size of shader caches by around 60% on average. So as a whole, shader caches should be a lot smaller, though this may not affect every game. Some games use video files to play, cutscenes and such, and those sometimes have to be re-encoded. Ultimately though, these transcoded video files won't benefit from this update. And of course, depending on what game you play and how many cutscenes and such there are, those types of games may not see a significant decrease in shader cache size. Still though, it's a net positive, especially for modern AAA titles that have multiple gigabytes of shader cache. Another major benefit is that some games have stuttering issues in the current version of SteamOS, but with this new Mesa update, this shouldn't happen anymore. Period. This is single-handedly one of the biggest performance updates ever, and you get to save some space to boot. Hooray 64GB models. Next up is a kernel update. The Steam Deck hasn't had a Linux kernel update in quite some time either. Now, we still don't know what version kernel it's supposed to be, but it'll certainly be newer than Linux version 5.13, which is about a year and a half old at this point. Generally speaking, Linux kernel updates include security updates, bug fixes, and other general performance increases. But definitely one of the biggest changes to the kernel is a change in how the Steam Deck deals with SMT workloads. For those not in the know, some emulators and some games work better when you disable SMT, which, for the record, is not an option available in SteamOS. You have to download Decky and then download Power Tools to access such a feature. And truth be told, it's still a pain to have to go into an emulator, disable SMT, and save that as an option for that particular game, or emulator, or whatever. It's a hassle, and thankfully, Valve sees that it's a hassle and they're fixing it. Essentially, games that perform better with SMT off should perform the same now with SMT enabled. This improvement definitely has to do with the kernel, and I think it's just automatic. What this means is that Power Tools may not be necessary anymore. You may not need to disable SMT for specific games anymore. And for those that haven't downloaded Power Tools yet, this may be a net performance increase, period. So that about covers it for all the known changes so far for SteamOS 3.5. It may not be the flashiest update when it comes to new features and whatnot, but what matters is the under the hood changes happening to SteamOS as a whole. Performance increases while saving space, with reduced stuttering. I don't know about you, but that's the most exciting part of this update. And I, for one, cannot wait for SteamOS 3.5 to officially release. This is the Steam Deck update you've been waiting for. That said, no one knows when SteamOS 3.5 is going to release, but I'll be there when it releases. If you like this video, be sure to press the thumbs up button and spread the good gospel of high-tech lowlife. And if you want to see more high-tech lowlife, be sure to subscribe and press the bell icon for notifications. And for you enlightened individuals, be sure to join my Discord server. And if you wish to support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page. Links in the description down below.